And welcome to Theater Talk Boston. Today we're joined by Mr. Robbie Simpson, who plays Clifford Anderson in Deathtrap by Ira Levin, playing August 21st through August 31st at the Cape Playhouse. Hi, Robbie. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thanks so much. So happy to be here and to chat with you today.
Of course. So I don't actually know too much about the show, and I had a little trouble preparing for this interview because I didn't want to Google it and get any spoilers. But could you tell us what the show's about?
Yes, so you're right. There are a lot of spoilers. There's lots of twists and turns in this play. It is the longest running thriller in Broadway history. So without ruining too much of it, it is about Sidney Bruhl, who's a very famous playwright, and his wife Myra. It takes place in their home in Westport, Connecticut. He was a very famous writer. 18 years ago, he wrote a big hit. He hasn't had many hits since then. And the show opens up with him getting a script from Clifford Anderson, from my character, who he met giving a seminar. Clifford sends him a script to peruse and look over. It ends up being a very good one. And then he invites Clifford over. And it all goes from there. I really can't say much more, but full of suspense and comedy and mystery and twists and turns that I really don't think any audience could really see coming.
Right. That's awesome. Were you familiar with the play before you started this process?
I was. Deathtrap has made its way around the country in the regions. It's an incredibly well-written thriller. Very scary. You know, the audience will scream just as loud as they laugh. So when you have a play that's, really stood the test of time, people tend to know it. It had been done at the Playhouse, but probably not in the last 30 or 40 years. So I did know of it. It also was made into a very famous movie with Christopher Reeve and Michael Caine in the late 70s, which was very, very popular as well. But I hadn't been in it. I had just read it before this.
That's awesome. What is it about thrillers on stage that just audience loves so much?
What's so interesting is that the genre of theater just works so differently than television or film. So, horror and thriller is just so big in cinema and always has been. And even moving into television now with, Ryan Murphy and American Horror Story. There's just something about the zeitgeist that has always included thrillers. But what's interesting to me is putting suspense horror on stage, because what is scary to us in television is just different than when you're actually sitting in the theater and you really can, see everything. Everything is tangible. It's right in front of you. So it just works in a little bit of a different way. And I think the audience, because it's happening in the room, it is scarier. You could touch it. The things that are happening are, they're really happening as opposed to the safety of a TV screen.
Right.
And then using, the theater magic of effects and stage blood and lights and scary music, it just really creates a really amazing art form for thrillers and being scared. And I think it'll always be a part of the canon of theater, of just seeing thrillers. Agatha Christie, her play The Mousetrap is the longest running play in the history of theater, and it is a thriller. So I think that just speaks to just how popular they really are.
For sure. Could you talk to us a little bit about your rehearsal process? Just because I know it's so quick. You only have about 2 weeks to put it together. So how does going into that, how do you prepare and knowing you only have so little time to get it ready?
Yeah. So we have 2 weeks of rehearsal. We all rehearse in New York City, in Manhattan, which is where I am right now. And for me, it was really about really getting to know the play. And what I mean by that is reading it a handful of times. I did watch the movie in preparation for it, just because the movie is so well known. And Christopher Reeve is such an incredible actor that I just really wanted to make sure I saw it. And then going further, it's really just, how do you memorize all those lines? It really is just that. It's making sure you have all of your lines really memorized, because that way when you get into the room, you get in the room with the director and the other actors, you can just go right away. You can just sprint off, get into the work, feel more comfortable with the show, and be able to really play with the other actors in rehearsal to find all those nuances and the exciting things that we're able to bring to the play. And the other actors also, do the same thing and are very, very prepared. So it's made for a really exciting rehearsal process. So really, it's just seeing all the material that you can have to go on, and then just doing the work, reading the play, memorizing the lines.
Right. Looking at your bio, you were also involved as the director with the tour of Chicago and a few others. Could you talk to us a little bit about those experiences? And do you prefer acting over directing, or you love them both? And just talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love doing both. I think they both one feeds the other. For such a long time, especially in our business, people like to pigeonhole you and say you do one thing, you are an actor or you are a director. And I think more and more, especially in the last 10 or 15 years, you really find a lot of actors that are directing and a lot of choreographers that are directing and, doing a lot of different things, writing. So for me, it's important because I think directing makes me a better actor. And I think, I have 2 degrees in acting, and that makes me a better director.
Right.
And I think that it's just a fun way to get to know the art form better, to come at it from 2 different sides. And it's, the next 2 jobs I'm going to be doing are directing jobs. So, I like to flip back and forth so it always stays fresh and interesting.
Right. That's awesome. And you're also currently the assistant artistic director at the Cape Playhouse. For those who don't know what that means, could you talk to us about what that job is and what that entails and like the day-to-day of being an artistic director?
For sure. It's another word is a producer. So we start. It's really a year-round job. We start in January dealing with contracts, doing negotiations with actors, designers, directors, hiring everyone that's going to come in and work for those 4 months during the summer season. So in that, there's negotiations and dealing with unions and deciding, all the perks and the money and everything like that.
Right.
And then it's along with assembling the team. And then, depending on the show, we did once earlier this year, and there was about 40 instruments in once that were played by all the actors. And so one of my jobs was finding all the instruments and renting them and, just really making sure the show goes on. And, we have everything for the artists when they come to the Playhouse that they need to be able to be at their best and to create, the high quality of art that they're known for, at the Playhouse. And it also goes with curating artists and finding people and designers and directors that are really going to work well together to bring an experience to the Playhouse that has never been seen on any other stage and will never be seen after the production closes at the theater. Right. So it's a really special job.
That's awesome. Going off that, if there's one show, play, or musical you could bring to the Playhouse, is there anyone that you're just dying to do?
What an excellent question. The first thing that jumps into my mind, just one of my favorite musicals of all time, is Miss Saigon. I had been in it a long time ago. It was like one of the first jobs, professional jobs that I did. It was just recently on Broadway. The revival was here from London. It was just really beautiful. And I think it's just a really epic story that's told very intimately and very beautiful. And I think it would be actually very interesting to do a scaled down version of the show that's really about the relationships and the struggles. And because I think what was happening with the Vietnam War is not so different than what's happening now. And I think the audience and patrons of the Playhouse would really benefit from, putting up to a mirror to what was happening then and being able to reflect on their own lives and what's happening, just today with everything.
Right.
And also just the music is just out of this world. That's incredible. So it was written by the same people that did Les Mis.
Yep.
So yeah, that's what comes to mind first.
That's awesome. Growing up, did you always know you wanted to work in the theater?
Yeah. I actually grew up in Western Massachusetts, in West Springfield, closer to the Berkshires, and which just has a lot of theater and art and music and dance. So It was a really wonderful place to grow up. And I started working when I was in middle school doing like professional shows. And so my summer jobs or jobs when I was in high school was always doing theater. I was lucky to have that. And I was lucky to meet a lot of actors that were making a living doing theater or doing voiceovers or doing television or being writers and directors and actors that were able to pay their bills and live very prosperous lives by doing their arts. And I think seeing that from a young age, kind of dispelled the thing that, you can't go into the theater because, you won't make money. But the truth is there are many artists, many actors that make an excellent living that aren't famous, but they are doing what they love and they're making a living and they're supporting their families. So I think seeing that from a young age really made me feel confident following my passion and my interests in going to school for theater.
Right. That's awesome. Looking at your resume, you've played a wide variety of roles. If you could go back and revisit one of those roles, do you have one that you would want to try again? / do you have a dream role you've always wanted to play?
That's a great question. I recently did Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? The movie is obviously very famous.
Right.
The play is excellent. It was on Broadway a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. It's coming back to Broadway next year. I did it in a similar rehearsal process to what we have at the Cape Playhouse. It was about a 10-day rehearsal process, and that play is about 40 pages longer than Deathtrap. And it was really quite an exciting feat to get the show up, and I was really proud of where we were, but I would love to go back now and really work on that show again. It's just, there's so much going on with it, the relationship between George and Martha and my character Nick and his wife Honey, that's just very complex and very human, and only by closing night did I feel like we were really getting it right, and man, would I love to just jump into that again. So that's something that's always on my horizon, something that I want to do. A dream role, I think, I love Arthur Miller. So, either of those two roles in Death of a Salesman or All My Sons, Chris in that show I just think he's, there's a reason why All My Sons was just on Broadway, and why he's always being produced is because I think he's really standing the test of time and really talking about important issues that are happening, that were happening in our country and are still continuing to happen on a large scale, but also within family dynamics, and just really beautiful, honest writing, and you can never have enough of that. So.
Right, that's great. And finally, our last question that we ask all of our guests here on Theater Talk Boston. Do you have any fun on-stage mishap stories? I know you've done a lot of theater all around the country and whatnot. Do you have any fun stories of things that have gone terribly wrong?
Oh, gosh. Yes. I was doing a production of Over the Tavern by Tom Dudzik. It's this really sweet, almost like a Neil Simon play about this family.
Sure.
And I opened up a screen door, and it hit my forehead, and I kind of didn't think anything of it, and I kind of run through the set and grab some food and run and have a scene with the actor playing my brother. And all of a sudden, he just starts staring at my forehead, and his eyes are bulging, and I'm just like, what's going on? And then all of a sudden, I feel just blood running down my forehead.
Oh, no.
My contacts turned like a weird yellow color, and I had indeed smashed my forehead on that door. I ended up, it was funny, in the very next scene, my character was supposed to have gotten in a fight, so they bandaged me up backstage. There was no need for a prop bandage or, fake blood on me at that point. And then immediately after the show, I got in a car and went to the ER, and I got 12 stitches.
Oh, boy.
So that was a pretty traumatic experience, and, just taught me always to be careful and to know what you're doing on stage. But, the audience thought that it was real. They thought that it was supposed to happen. I finished the scene and came off stage, with a bandage on and everything, and, they just thought that's what it was. And so the show didn't stop, and the show went on. But, yeah, that was for sure a memorable experience.
Wow. Jeez. The show must go on. Well, Robbie, I just want to thank you so much for chatting with us today. Everyone, go see Deathtrap, playing August 21st through the 31st at the Cape Playhouse. And remember, you can get $25 Student Rush tickets available by calling or visiting the box office, and get your tickets at capeplayhouse.com. Thank you, Robbie, so much, and I can't wait to see the show next week.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.